Hey everybody, good morning. Let's come to something a little less techy. There we go, Final Fantasy IV. Rydia. It's neat shuffling through your reading music and seeing what you got. By the way, if you guys ever need some reading music, because people read constantly at work, people always, they're like, how can you listen to something and read at the same time? I'm like, well, I got it. It's actually kind of simple. We have a whole era of music dedicated to this very thing. It's video game music. It's a neat science that you have to get a difference between. You have to make it distinct. You have to have game music or music that is motivational but not distracting. So it's non-lyrical, like it should be anyway, or it's in a foreign language which you cannot understand, which is kind of neat. So anyway. This is what you hear when I start playing my own stuff. So a couple of neat things have been happening in the country, and everybody's noticed it, right? We recently had all of our schools closed for 2 weeks. Karate classes canceled for 2 weeks. So I have a lot of family time, and I think this is one of the ulterior kind of ultimatums. So I just kind of want to give my thoughts on coronavirus and the necessity of slowing down. So what happens if you're driving in a car and suddenly your car stops? Depends how fast you're going, right? Depends how busy your life is. So for some, the hiccup in the country where we have to slow things down will be absolutely devastating, almost heart attack worthy. What happens if your heart stops? I mean, it kind of gets rough. But on the other hand, I think it's at least for me being lower middle class, the era that I'm coming from, it is pretty neat having nothing on your schedule. The saying goes, if the devil can't make you disbelieve, he'll make you busy. He'll make you too busy to think about what's important. So I know I usually have one thing on my schedule on Saturday and Sunday, even though Saturday is technically my Sabbath. Everybody should have a day they take to enjoy what they have. That Saturday is my day for that. So I had I was going to go to a men's breakfast and then teach. We have some senior browns and black belts. I teach the upper classes Saturday mornings. I make myself available for them. But that went away. So I had the morning. And then today, this is Sunday, March 15th, 2020. Church services are canceled. So yesterday, we hung out, enjoyed each other's company, tech-free. We even turned off tech. So no computers until after lunch. Then we had a little bit of time, maybe 20 minutes. Then we went to a park, which was amazing. We also braved the shopping world, which was kind of neat. It wasn't as bad as people thought. I think the giant rush is already over. But going to the park, Springettsburg Park, watching my 2-year-old, she's 3, climb this 2-story ladder. It's encased. It's a pretty neat, start to the bottom, goes up a floor, and there's a cage around it. Goes up another floor. There's even a thicker cage, so there's no way they can fall. And then it's a tube slide the whole way down. And then there's 50 to 100 kids in this area. It's a big area. It's Springettsburg Park. Watching her do this by herself over and over again, it's just amazing. I had to be with her one time, and then she got it. And watching tiny people progress is awesome. But it slows the country down. It increases family bonding. This country, which is already you're skeptical at the Outworking, right? This country is made based on a 2-person working home to support a family. Well, we have a 70% divorce rate, which destroys that. And then you're going to stop them from going to work because you're shutting down schools, and there's no daycare for that mass amount of kids. How are they going to go to work? How's anybody going to go to work? If they're a single parent, they already have a babysitter, and now their kid can't stay at the daycare center. I mean, it's on the surface, it's kind of devastating, but at the same time, it causes families to go shh and just come together for a minute. I mean, you are forced to hang out, especially over the weekend. You're forced to hang out. Now, that could do a couple things, right? It could either make you, start to bond and love each other. It depends on the mentality you reach when you go in there. You can make the most of your situation. I'm reading Bonhoeffer right now. Bonhoeffer was a guy that literally went back to Germany because he said, it's not right for me to abandon my brothers and to hang out in the concentration camps. I mean, he knew his destiny. He goes, that was the outworking of his faith, and it should be. If you're not reaching out, You're just dissecting inside. And if you're not carrying your cross, going to those that really need it, and you're just living in the comforts of your own home. I myself lead a pretty good life, but I do have, potentially when I have my plan, right? But who knows? God has other things in mind. Is to pay my debt first. I think that's necessary, and then if you need to go out to foreign countries to talk about God with people who have a much different perspective. I do that at work all the time. I prayed for a gentleman who had a lot of pain in his hip, literally right there. I mean, how often do we do this? I gotta tell myself, and what got me is I almost broke down crying because he was in so much pain trying to walk from point A to point B. And then I said, can I pray for you? He said, right now? I'm like, yeah, I just started. I didn't, he was very nice about it, didn't reject it. And he knows my faith. He's my boss. But it was neat doing that. How often do we do that? Now, you might not share my faith, but if a Christian believes in God, why don't they do this? Why not? You also have to understand, if you're not a Christian, you're listening to this, if a person who follows Christ, because Christian is a highly political statement, if a person who follows Christ really believes it, why wouldn't they? How much would they have to dislike you to say to withhold their truth from you? I mean, you got to think about this kind of stuff. It does have natural outworkings for themselves as well. Are they a enclosed kind of environment, or are they actually living out their faith? It's very neat to think about. So anyway, it brought us together as a family, this slowing down of the country. Because now, today, Sunday, we would, I am in charge of child check-in. My wife is doing sound for 2 services. Then we go shopping, and basically we're busy till about 2 p.m. Then we got 5 hours with the family, maybe. Usually we detox. And today I'm doing taxes. So all this is Sunday. Like, why do we have this, regimented agenda? Well, because we're Americans. We're busy. I specifically wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning. I used to boast about it. Like, look at me, I'm amazing. I had this bug that was put into my ear when I was 18, 19. Because I heard my uncle only slept 2-3 hours a night. I'm like, well, why can't I do that? I can do that. Purely motivated by pride, but turns out that kind of discipline actually stuck with me. Now I do it because I think it's necessary. You have to wake up before. I mean, you look in the scriptural reference, the Psalms, it says I rise early. There's hardly anything there that says I stay up late, because at the end of the day, you're already exhausted. If you don't make time for it in the morning, and any of the self-help books, or the how you succeed, or the one, what did I read? Extreme Ownership written by Navy SEALs. You will do your self-discipline in the morning. I switch my workouts to the evening because I had guys that can only make it in the evening. So I'm like, well, I could work out twice, but that'd kind of be devastating to my body because I also have to teach after. So I'd be working out in the morning, working out in the evening, then going to teach karate after that. And I usually make myself an example still. I'm still youthful enough that I can make this happen. So, but anyway, the other thing that's going to happen, I think anyway, my wife predicted this, is there's going to be a giant baby boom in 9 months. So, what is it, March 15th? So 9 months in December, next December, because people are forced to stay in. Hasn't been government mandate that we shut down, working factories yet. I'll be at work. My wife works at a daycare, so I have a giant luxury here where both of my children will be with her at the daycare center. It's multi-age. They have school age there too. But it'll be neat. It'll be neat. I saw this weather change also, dude. Nick's nose a little itchy. This is her sweatshirt, by the way. Legend of Zelda. I think we got it for her. I got it for her her birthday, a second or third year we were married. I don't know, something like that. But anyway, so I got it pulled up on my screen. I'm a member of the C.S. Lewis Fellows Program. How are we? For C.S. Lewis, his major thing was not Corona. It was the atomic age, because he was through World War II where the bomb showed up, and suddenly we have this massive, ridiculous power. We can level cities with one push of a button, for the most part. I mean, granted, it is a lot of prep, the atomic energy and stuff that goes into it. It's not like you can just make one of those in 2 seconds. It is what it is. But it's interesting. So you look at the hype and the stuff that's going on. This is also, it's like dissected hype. What does his main argument in his book, Weight of Glory, was, what does war do to death? Well, the answer is nothing. 100% nothing. It brings it closer. It makes the important things like more. It puts them in a greater focus, right? It says that death happens 100% to every single person. Right. So in a world of evolution, why have we not evolved through death? Anything. Why is if the ultimate goal is preservation, why is it not an eternal engine that just keeps us growing and, I don't know, turning into a giant mass? That's right, we got some tissues, but they were all sold out. A giant mass of growth that just consumes everything. Like the Silver Surfer, right? Where it's a giant planet eater thing, just runs all over the place. I mean, what? Why not? Well, then because we're looking for reason, right? Reason kind of like is this underpinning thing. Knowing something means there's something assumed to be known. So how are we to live in an atomic age? I'm gonna actually read right from here and then kind of put the analogy to us. C.S. Lewis writes about the fear that can cripple us if we allow it to. In one way, we think a great deal too much of the atomic bomb. How are we to live in an atomic age? I attempted to reply, why, as you would have lived in the 16th century when the plague visited London almost every year. This thing melted organs, by the way. If you want to think about that compared to the coronavirus. Whereas you would have lived in a Viking age when the raiders from Scandinavia might land and cut your throat any night, or indeed as you already are living in an age of cancer, an age of syphilis, an age of paralysis, an age of air raids, an age of railway accidents, an age of motor accidents. In other words, do not let us begin by exaggerating the novelty of our situation. Believe me, dear sir or madam, you and all whom you love were already sentenced to death before the atomic bomb was invented, and quite a high percentage of us were going to die in unpleasant ways. We had indeed one very great advantage over our ancestors, anesthetics. We have that still. It's perfectly ridiculous to go about whimpering and drawing out long faces because the scientists have added one more chance of painful and premature death to a world which already bristles with such chances, and in which death itself was not a chance at all, but a certainty. This is the first point to be made, and the first action to be taken is to pull ourselves together. If we are all going to be destroyed by an atomic bomb, let the bomb, when it comes, find us doing sensible and human things. Praying, working, teaching, reading, listening to music, bathing the children, playing tennis, chatting to our friends over a pint and the game of darts. Not huddled together like a frightened sheep and thinking about bombs. They may break our bodies. A microbe can do that, but they need not dominate our minds. That's pretty good words right there. So the bubonic plague visited every single year, and it was horrible until they figured out a way, mostly I would argue hygienics, that depleted it, that got it away from their system. Now, death is death, but death is inevitable. It happens. Why are we clinging on to these lives so much? And then you could throw the other argument around, why have kids if you know that's going to happen? Because the nature of love is to create. It's the outworking. Like, this stuff all synergizes with if you have not read C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity, I strongly recommend it. I think I have a link to it in the comments. All right, it's worth the time. Christian philosophy is pretty awesome. It's very coherent, answers all your origin, meaning, morality, and destiny questions, and gives purpose to man. So the coronavirus isn't even that lethal, but I can understand the hype, right? It's the curve, exponentially. 2 people have it, 4 people have it, 8 people have it, 16 people have it. And then it turns into Italy, and Italy is basically out of control. I do not like being sick, Sam. I don't think I have corona. Actually, I have a theory that I had corona, when I was sick. That I have never had a coughing flu before, and people who have respiratory conditions or are highly susceptible to respiratory issues usually get it, and it's airborne. But I was in bed for 2 straight days and I didn't feel like doing anything. And I just coughed and coughed and coughed. Usually when you get the flu, It's a stomach issue. By the way, why are people buying all the toilet paper? It's a respiratory thing. Very confusing. My nose is just going nuts. I'm gonna end this soon. But that's honestly because just reading that, what C.S. Lewis wrote about the plague visiting London, like that, and what he said really. You should research dignity and honor-bound cultures. We live in a victimhood culture right now globally. It's not just, but there's still remnants of this kind of culture. That the English specifically had a dignity culture. If we're gonna do this, let us do it with dignity. Let us stand up straight and do. Like you think of the bubonic plague visiting this specific country, year after year after year, doing horrible things. But that doesn't desensitize death. Death is horrible. People fear it. It's the unknown. What happens after? That's one of the questions that has to be asked on a worldview. You can't ignore it. If you ignore it, you might as well ignore gravity. But you know how it works. But you have to face death on a yearly basis, knowing that you might die in a moment. Well, how would you want to be remembered? This is where you play on significance. And you play on community. And you see what is... It lets you start to think about what really is important. So I like how everybody's being gathered together. In our political realm, you can see, at least I believe, our president is doing, as however you want to gauge his maturity level, he's doing a lot better than he was. He's taking this role seriously. The people that oppose him, because again, it's not that I agree with his moral character or anything. I just got to say, you're making me vote for him, because Biden cannot string a sentence together. Bernie Sanders, socialism. By the way, the biggest, if you didn't catch the other argument, the biggest difference between capitalism and socialism is freedom. Capitalism, people can work with it, or they can't. You can just do what you want, and that's fine. You can work outside the system. Socialism has to be enforced by the top. It has to be enforced for it to work. You can't just say, you don't have to do it, but you do. It has to be enforced. Freedom is just not there. But in this world that we have right now, we are extremely spoiled, is a good word in America. We're spoiled. We are. We have information up the wazoo. We have freedom up the wazoo. Sometimes the consequences of our actions can be negotiated away, and we don't have to live with them. But that, when we do, it devalues what we do, and it devalues our choice between good choice and bad choice. But it's another thing altogether. So anyway, before I just start, ruining more of my toilet paper stockpile, which we only have a little bit of, I hope they come in with new shipments. Dude, I've invested in the wrong stock. Some people are investing in like hand sanitizer, toilet paper's where it's at, I'm telling you. So I just wanted to give you my predictions, what's going to happen. I think we're going to get, depending upon where you are, I think we're going to get a closer community just for these 2 weeks, which we're taking a minute, taking a breath. I think it's good for America. And we're also, per my wife, going to have a baby boom probably around December, which is going to be amazing. We need one of those. Right now, we're depopulating ourselves, but because of the immigrant influx, America's getting a little bit more populated. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for giving me a hearing. If you're enjoying the gaming videos, click the like button, subscribe if you want to see more in the future. Check the comments for little hoodies, and I should probably wear one of my own hoodies one of these days. And reference books. I read constantly. Oh man, this book. I gotta give props to this one. This is called The Christian Answer Book, or Christian Dad's Answer Book. So, I have not read it yet. Dude, I'm like 2 pages in and I will start crying. So here, I'll read this one part to you. Here's the foreword. So here we go. It is exactly what you think it is, even for ladies. 4 things every father should know. You love 2 of which you do, 2 of which you don't do. And I want to give this to like every man that works for me, because I have like 2 guys in the building. It's like 200-300 people who say that, why get married, or why even stay as long as we're roommates. Maybe we'll divorce if I don't like my significant other. Anyway, the 4 concepts. 1, you love them unconditionally no matter what. 2, you believe in them no matter what. Notice we didn't say believe them, but believe in them. There's a difference. 2 things you don't do. 1, not disciplining them, or waiting too late to discipline them. 2, not trying. So the story he gives in here is about a let's talk about the first one, unconditional love. I'll just read this one because there's a lot of directions I can go with this, and this is the kind of thing that is only possible when you slow down and take time with your kids. The next generation is so vital. If you don't believe this, you are all about the self. Not having kids, it's kind of, you should find something else to build you up, to live for a purpose outside of yourself. That's just something that has to happen. It calls to you. You got to remember, children want to love their parents. One day, a father took his 2 elementary school-age children for a ride in a pontoon boat. They were traveling down the river when suddenly the motor stopped. When the father looked behind him, he noticed something familiar about the red sweater tangled up in the propeller. Then his young son yelled, "Missy fell in." In horror, the father saw his little girl entwined to the propeller of the boat. She was submerged just beneath the surface of the water, looking straight into the eyes of her father and holding her breath. He jumped into the water and tried to pull the motor up, but the heavy engine wouldn't budge. Time was running out. Desperately, the father filled his own lungs with air and dipped below the surface, blowing air into his daughter's lungs. After giving her air 3 times, the father took a fillet knife from his shocked son's hand. He quickly cut the red sweater from the propeller and lifted his daughter into the boat. Although she had survived, her deep cuts and bruises needed medical attention, so they rushed her to the hospital. When the crisis was over, the doctors and nurses asked the girl, "How come you didn't panic?" "Well, because we were raised on the river, and my dad always taught us that if you panic, you die. Besides, I knew my daddy would come and get me." Do your children know beyond the shadow of a doubt that you would come and get them no matter what? If your son was busted in a drug raid, would you go out and get him? If your daughter got caught being a prostitute, would you go get your little girl? If your son was drunk on a skid row, would you disown him? So these kind of things can only be built when we slow down, when we take a break from self, take a break from games, and invest in the next generation. It's so important. Even if you're a young man or woman, 18 to 24, I think, is the highest audience, at least on this channel. Think about the next generation coming up. Think of something outside of yourself. You have to. If not, you are basically identifying yourself with death. Because if you identify yourself with yourself, we all know the natural outworking of what happens. Take a minute, slow down, read a book, invest in somebody else beside yourself. It'll be worth it. Anyway, once again, thanks for watching. I'll let you go now. Thanks for giving me a hearing. Take care.